Agency local patrols, prepare to copy. This is Patrol Perspectives, a podcast about our agency, for our agency.
Hello, caller 911.
I just saw somebody get out of their car and shoot at a police vehicle, and he did a 360. Even the policeman had his lights on him. He did a 360, got out of his car, was wearing a mask, and he was shooting at the police car. It was white. It looked like a state patrol. I'm at Myra and Pop.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
We don't know what we just saw, but we just think we just saw a state patrol officer get shot. The guy in the gray car got out, and we heard boom, 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 and the state patrol officer took off.
We're on Poplar Street, and we just witnessed a shooting. It's right by the cinemas, and he shot the cop. He shot the police officer like 5 times. The guy got out. He had a hood on, a black hood, and he just shot at the cop, and the cop just took off.
Okay, that's all. Key status 1197.
Walla Walla 1197 status? No, it's just 1187 Walla Walla 1197 status? Walla Walla patrols emergency traffic only 1713. 1197's vehicle was struck by a passenger car and shots were fired. Believe 1197 has drove south to St. Mary's Hospital, 897 en route to the hospital.
Oh my God. The cop is at the hospital.
The officer's at the hospital?
Yes, we just pulled into the hospital right now, and he's here. I don't know if he's alive or what. And we're right by him. He's a state trooper.
State trooper?
Trooper.
Okay.
And he's bullet holes in the
Okay.
And there's blood on the car. We saw 2 people out by the cop car, but we don't know if he got out because we pulled in a few minutes after, but there's blood on the door.
Shots fired call. He's at the hospital and he's still in his vehicle. I'm trying to call St. Mary's. On the back license plate, what does it say on the car that got shot?
1197 WSP.
Okay, thank you. I'll let him know, okay? And you did a great job.
It's 1197. We have report that a car crashed into him and then got out and shot. His windshield was shot. Hang on a second. I'm trying to confirm with my partner. The trooper's at the hospital, correct?
Yeah, your trooper is at the hospital at St. Mary's.
Our lives, as you know, my fiance and I, it changed a little bit on September 22nd, shortly after 5 p.m. I think the official time is 5:07. But yeah, a little after 5, I went to initiate a traffic stop, a speed stop, off of, I observed the driver out on Myra Road and crossing with Whitman, around 50 miles an hour, I don't remember exactly, but the posted speed limit's 35. So I was going to do a speed stop. It was a busy time of day. Everyone's coming home from work, so it's one of those things where you want to kind of nip those actions. That way they don't become a consistent basis so people don't get hurt out there on our roadways. So yeah, ended up catching up to him, had a little bit of traffic to deal with, caught up to the vehicle around on Poplar Street, Avery, near the VA and Geisa Bank in our movie theater on Poplar there. Went to initiate the traffic stop. I remember seeing the vehicle slow. My thought process at that time was great. We're going to the movie theater parking lot just like I planned. I've stopped hundreds of cars there. Just because there's no shoulder, it's sidewalk and street, so you can't safely, pull over a car without disrupting traffic on that road. So yeah, thought we were going to the parking lot, great. Went to either pick up the radio. There was a lot of Kennewick traffic going on. I think there was a big fire going on in Kennewick, so a lot of radio traffic going on, so I couldn't quite get out at that time. It happened, understandable. And the next thing I know, I look over my left shoulder and I'm staring down the barrel of a gun with a gentleman wearing a black bandana, like a grayish hoodie, and he's probably no more than 10 feet away. I would be surprised if they said anything more than 10 feet. I'll know one day when the report does come out what our distance was. But yeah, stared down the barrel of a handgun and it turned into a cannon really quickly. But yeah, I looked over my left shoulder and I saw the gun and saw him, and it was more just a split sec, it was a quick moment, but I raised my left hand just as a defensive. I mean, I didn't think of doing it, I just did it. and started dipping my head down into my center console, as low as I can go and as fast as I can go. Next thing I remember, just my ears ringing really loud, and then I just started pulling away. Mentally, I knew, obviously, I've been fired at, and I was in an advantageous position to win a gunfight at that time. So my plan was to kind of clear the area, find a place to park, pull over for a minute, gain my bearings, get on the radio once the radio cleared up, and let people know what's going on, and give a description of the vehicle with the license plate and all that, and just let people know what's going on so that way they can be aware about it. Whether we would go pursue them or not, who knows? We'd have to cross that bridge with leadership. I haven't been in a position like this, so I wasn't going to initiate that by myself without approval, just to be sure that my supervisors were kind of at least aware of what's going on before we try to either recontact the driver or go from there. So yeah, I just tried to clear the scene. I was driving eastbound on Poplar and crossed the fire station there right where our railroad tracks are. And about that time, I'm not sure if I was hanging up my radio or talking on the radio, but I looked down and our nice French blue uniform was bright red. And then I realized I had been hurt at some capacity. Initially, I didn't think he hit me at all. I didn't feel any pain. The adrenaline spiked instantly. I was still operating my vehicle and whatnot, so I didn't know like the extent of my injury. I was still driving. There's an S curve, so I managed to turn and whatnot, so I thought I was okay. And just my ears were ringing really bad. But once I knew and saw the red uniform, I knew he hit me somewhere. So it became, my new mission essentially. Fortunately, I was close enough to the hospital. I was probably no more than a half a mile away from St. Mary's Medical Center. And that was my new plan, was just to go there and figure out what's going on. And so yeah, I pulled into the ER. I was trying to get on the radio the whole time. It sounded like from detectives and whatnot and from talking to communications officers, I was covered or somehow I just didn't get out. Mentally, I was, I went through the whole process like, law enforcement officer said. I said, shots fired. I gave our location, Poplar and Avery. I think I gave the description of a silver, like 5-door hatchback is what I said. And then in my mind, I remember saying, into my radio, gray hoodie and black bandana over his face. And then when I realized I was injured at some point, then I got on the radio again and tried to say, officer down, and then advising them I'm en route to St. Mary's, and, to give the hospital a heads up. We usually do to give them a warning to have a space for us, but yeah, I remember saying that, and then, whether Kennewick was handling whatever they were handling or for some reason I didn't get out. Yeah, it was kind of unfortunate I learned because that was like my proud moment is I still, I still had the bearings after being shot. At that time, I had no idea how many times, but just knowing, hey, this is a good cop move, getting on the radio and letting people know what's going on, your location, where you're going, and letting people know you're safe. So mentally, I was like, yeah, that's awesome, good work. And then, come to find out I got covered or whatever happened, a little frustrating, but it was a proud moment for me knowing that I was still able to keep my bearings and do cop work. And that was a proud moment. So yeah, I pulled into St. Mary's. There was a little bit of a rumor going on that I parked into a parking spot that because I didn't want to block the ambulance bay. Not fully true. The main reason was there was a Jeep or a large SUV that was blocking the little S-curve to get up there. And I had my lights on, so I'm assuming they just didn't want to get in my way, which fair, I understand it. So yeah, I pulled up, exited my vehicle, and took a brief moment to look down the driveway where I entered. My biggest fear at that point was that he followed me, and he could have been upset that maybe he didn't, do the job he wanted to do. And so I took a moment to pause. I don't know how long it was. Maybe I stood there for 5 seconds or not, but it felt like an eternity to me. just staring down the driveway, just making sure he wasn't going to come up behind me and try to hurt me again. And I was just ready for a fight at that point. Once I realized I gave him however much time elapsed, decided to go up to the glass doors of the emergency room, and they have a punch code on the side of the door. And this was my first real emotion, is I can never remember the code to get in. And so I tried it, didn't work, and fine. Frustration set in, so I was, well, okay, hopefully they can hear me. I just start hitting the glass on the door and just trying to make myself as big as possible, waving my arms, and just trying to get someone that hopefully walks by. There was a desk right there in the computer and no one was at it. And I was just hoping someone walked by, and sure enough, the ER tech I've come to meet, and my fiance works with her. She noticed me as she walked by, and she let myself in, and I remember seeing her eyes about the size of softballs, got pretty big, and a little moment of shock, and internally I was like, oh boy, that's not good. If a medical professional has those eyes, yeah, something must be going on. And she sat me down in a wheelchair initially because the hospital was too full to have a bed for me at that time, and granted, I didn't give them much of a heads up, which is fair. I don't blame them for that. It sat me down in a hospital chair, and the nurse that walked up, I've known her, she actually taught me in gymnastics when I was about 5 to 8 years old, when I was really little. And I remember seeing her, and that was like the moment where I knew I was safe. I've even spoke to her a little bit over the phone. We haven't met in person yet. Hopefully we will soon. But she even relayed that to me, that moment you walked in and you're really guarded, protecting yourself like with your chest and whatnot. And she said, when we made that eye contact, your arms went like down and your head sank. And that was, correlating what she said to me, that was the moment where I felt like I was safe finally. And I told her, Jamie, I've been hit. And I think her first words were on the line of, where's the other guy, or something like that. She thought I got into a fight or something, and that's the other guy's blood on me or something. And I told her, like, no, it's me, like I'm hit. And I remember her saying, does dispatch, do people know, essentially? Do they know you're here? And I don't know. I mean, I couldn't hear anything from the radio inside the car, so I had no idea if people knew what was going on at that point in time. And she said, okay, that's fine. Do we need to call somebody? And I went to go reach for my cell phone. Usually when I exit the car, it's in my back pocket. That particular time I left it in the car. I kind of jumped out of the car a little quicker than usual. And that moment I was trying to present my phone to call my fiance, call my parents, call coworkers. I was out with one other trooper that day, and it sounded like he got word really quick what happened with some witnesses. But yeah, I tried to present her for my phone, didn't have it, and she said, we'll take care of that, not a big deal. They started bandaging me up. I remember them packing my face, but I figured it was just glass or whatnot. I didn't think it was anything too major. I saw the injury on my hand, so I figured that was the worst of it. So they get me into a emergency room, trauma room, and they try to get my belt unsituated. And I remember the trauma doctor walked in and he was trying to help me with the belt. And I remember I don't know if I did, and I'll have to apologize if I did swat his hand away. But I wanted him to focus on, doing the medical stuff. Let me get my belt off. I can handle that. And security guard, he showed up a short time later and helped me get my duty belt off so I could lay in the bed. I just remember them putting pressure on my face. And I remember Nurse Coburn, Jamie, she introduced herself as the trauma lead, and then Dr. Potter, he introduced himself as kind of how they do in protocol. I think is just to know who's in charge. And I remember that, and then that's when my coworker, Trooper Krieger, walked in. And that was another moment of relief was, yeah, I'm safe here, but there's, a coworker, fellow law enforcement officer, And just seeing that like felt really good. I'm sure he didn't like what he was looking at, but like he looked like an angel with the glow behind him and all that. Just knowing, hey, I got a brother with me, and we're good at this point. And trying to reach up for him, you know, and grab his hand and whatnot, and give him a fist bump or whatever. I remember telling medical staff that, you know, I was just begging to them, yeah, please don't let me die. I think I even said one of them, like, I got myself here, please don't let me die, something on those terms. It was a little foggy, the memory there, but yeah, I just remember saying, like, I got myself here. Yeah, I need to live.
Captain Shane Nelson was on vacation with his family when he received news a commander never wants to hear.
When I got that phone call, it was just like a punch to the gut. You know, you have one of your troopers that's been shot, and I was told that he was shot in the face, and that he was at the hospital, and that they were working on him, and that he was, all things considered, he was doing okay. And I thought, how does someone get shot in the face and is doing okay? So shortly thereafter, over the next hour, I was kind of on pins and needles, getting details to whether he was critical or severe or what was the level of injury. And when I was told he was airlifted to Harborview, that just kind of got the best of me. So that made the decision easy for me that morning I needed to pack up and leave the campground, and we hit the road, the wife and I and the travel trailer, and spent 10 hours driving back to Washington State so I could be here not only for Dean, who was injured, but for his crew and pretty much everybody across my district, because I felt that everybody would be feeling the impact of this incident.
Trooper Atkinson's sergeant, Ryan Lose, was also out of state. He quickly learned an entire community had come together to ensure his trooper was taken care of.
Everything, all the resources that were coming out from not just the State Patrol, but I had, I got back into service and my phone was just blowing up with messages from Chief Butis with Walla Walla PD, and Sheriff Mark Kreider with the Sheriff's Office, and Chief Troy Tamaris with College Place PD, and Sheriff Helm, and everybody, the Garfield County Sheriff, the Columbia County Sheriff, Asotin County, everybody in this area that we work in was calling and reaching out, just, hey, what can we do? How can we help?
And I woke up, I think it was like 4 days later. Well, that's when I really came to, that I remember. In the ICU room, and I woke up and I saw my nurse, and my dad was next to me, and I think they came to realize like I was up, not just like sedated. And she asked me, you know where you're at? Yeah, I'm in Walla Walla. No, you're not. You're in Seattle. You're in Harborview. And I was like, oh, okay. That's not good, because that's usually, not a good thing. We're in there, and realized, I felt fine. I was sore. My throat was really sore because they had to intubate me, understandably. And that was really the worst of the pain at that point, was my sore throat. I was in ICU for a couple of days, and then I think it was maybe the following night or the next night that after I really woke up, and I went to use the restroom with one of the nurses, and I looked over in the mirror, and that's when I saw the wound in my face. I had no idea that I was actually injured in my face. And I looked over, and I don't know if I just made a noise or what. I don't really remember that part, but I remember just staring at myself in the mirror, and the nurse, she kind of, hey, you need to look at me. Yes, it looked scary, but this is all surgery, plastic surgery. It'll just be a little scar in the future one day. That was a real shocking moment that kept me up that night. Then it started how and where did I get hurt? And then when my dad came in that next day, that's when I asked him, where am I hurt? You got shot in the hand, and he took a round through your face, he took one through your ear, one glanced off the back of your head, or whether it penetrated or not. I have a couple of scars up there, so something happened up there. But yeah, I said, yeah, a round punch through your cheek and dropped into your palate, and the bullet's lodged in your jaw area in the muscle or something like that. And it was a real moment knowing that I was like actually hurt, because the adrenaline was pumping so hard, I didn't feel a single thing. I saw the injury on my hand, and that was really it. And, yeah, okay. I figured they'd, do whatever they got to do, and it'd be fine. But yeah, knowing that my face actually got pretty substantial wound to it was kind of eye-opening. And I've never even broken a bone before initially, never been to the hospital other than, checkups and whatnot. So I guess, taking it to the top, as high as you can go. Yeah, it was definitely one of those moments where, yeah, you really got hurt. And so kind of loomed on that and started feeling thankful, yeah. I mean, I know guys in our profession and military and whatnot, there's been a lot of guys that have been shot, but taking a round to the face, I mean, it became thankful that I smiled one night and I still had all my teeth, and just knowing how lucky in such a tragic incident happened, and when all went wrong, a lot went right at the same time. And that's kind of what drove me to, don't loom on what happened right now, just focus on getting a little better. And then doctors came in and said, hey, the bullet is still in your cheek. We're going to leave it up to you. And I was pumped full of meds at that point. I remember her giving me the options and said, we can go and remove it and not a big deal, or you can leave it in your cheek, kind of up to you. And I was like, I don't know, like, what do you think? And she said, well, let's say this, like, there's a nerve that runs up through there. If we hit that nerve, your face, it might become paralyzed on the good side of your face that you still have. I mean, I have paralysis on my injury side, but that's to be expected. But she said, I don't want to, fully paralyze your whole face, or at least the lower part of it. And I was like, okay. And she's like, well, how about this? If we go in there and it's cleared, would you feel good with us pulling it out? And if not, we'll leave it in until it encapsulates a little bit more to where it's safer to pull out. And yeah, let's go with that. So I go into that surgery that next morning, and my future brother-in-law at the time was standing guard for me that day. And he went down to the surgery with me, and yeah, they pulled the bullet out, and they let him, like, kind of not show it to him personally, but like through the glass, and wanted to let him know, like, hey, the bullet's out, contact whoever you need to contact to retrieve it as evidence. So he started that train, and so it was nice having him, that familiar face, when I woke up after that surgery, because that was the first surgery I was awake for, and a little nervous too leading up and whatnot. Just, anything can go wrong in a surgery. It doesn't matter how good the medical professionals are. Some things just happen. So I was a little nervous about going in, but when I woke up and he was bedside with me, it was a pretty good feeling, like having him as a particular trooper. With that relationship I have with him, it was a good moment, just knowing I'd be good. And yeah, that was the last bit of real medical work they did on me. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 days later on a Sunday, I got discharged and had an awesome welcome home trip with our motorcycles. And I think my dad enjoyed watching them do their thing a lot more than, because I've seen them do it before. It's still cool to watch, but yeah, my dad was like a 5th grader in the back of the car, like watching them do their thing, and he was all about it. But yeah, I came out of the hospital and seeing all the coworkers, and ended up seeing my best friend was right there, and that moment was sorry, but he's a law enforcement officer here in town, and grew up together, and giving that hug was definitely a moment.
I just want to say thank you to the community here in Walla Walla. The outpour of support has been just phenomenal. Just to see the motorcade bring Dean home. When I got back to the district, one of the things I started working on for my trip was what was going to happen after. How and when were we going to get Dean home? And immediately had a sergeant with Walla Walla reach out to me that he wanted to coordinate that effort in Walla Walla, which he did an absolute amazing job. And to bring everybody home, Dean, his family, everybody that was there to support him, was awesome.
When we were able to go over to Seattle and the detachment, our kind of family group here, work group that was able to bring Dean back home. And, when you came back into town and the streets were lined.
It's really promising. There are a lot of positives going on. A lot of people know I had a small amputation with my middle and ring finger. So that was kind of a bridge. But yeah, I noticed I had an amputation, but the doctor's like, hey, what stuff you like to do? And I was like, I love to golf. In the summer, I like to ski in the winter. And they're like, okay, well, good news. You'll be able to golf. You'll be able to ski with ski poles. I mean, obviously I can ski, my legs are okay, but they're like, yeah, you can go, hopefully by the spring, you'll go through your physical therapy and whatnot, and yeah, you'll be golfing in the nice weather. And that was kind of the first moment, like, yeah, it's not terrible. And it's just been a lot of physical therapy ever since, a lot of follow-up appointments to Harborview. My hand will be okay. I'll have a surgery in my palate and plastic surgery to fill my cheek back in. And hopefully when the weather warms up, I'll be essentially my, new normal, but 99% of what I am, and just enjoy the summer and kind of look at timeline and things are going when I'll be able to safely return to work. But I want to be sure I can handle myself and be on my own like I did before this incident. So that timeline, it's kind of to be determined at this point.
Chief John Batiste can attest that Dean has the entire WSP family supporting his recovery.
No matter what the future holds, we're going to go through it together. And this is one of those situations for Dean. We're going through this together. And I know that he's eager to return to work, and we're eager for him to return to work, but we don't want to rush it. We want to give him the space and the time he needs to fully heal and recover. I've been the chief now for 18 years, and I've had a number of incidents occur. This one for me is the most gratifying in terms of how it turned out. From the standpoint of a survival situation, I'm very grateful. I think the important thing is for folks to realize that the training that we receive from the academy is indeed life-saving. I want folks to know that that saying in the academy, "I will survive," that's not just a slogan, that's real. This man is an example of that reality. When it's time to take care of business, make sure that you're prepared to take care of yourself first and foremost. We're talking about Dean having used his training to save his life. We get through things together, not as an individual, together. And Dean knew where he had to get himself to in order to receive the necessary care to get him through this together with the help and experience of others. We all become one in a crisis situation, and that's a benefit to us all, and importantly, it's a benefit to the communities that we serve.
This tattoo had become, a staple of my law enforcement career. Always come home with a thin blue line through it, indicating the law enforcement line. When the incident happened, I didn't even think about the tattoo. Nothing registered like that to me. And I think it was my dad or one of the nurses or something pointed it out. It was the day I woke up, and I think it was the nurse. She said, oh, that's a really fitting tattoo with your situation. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I do have that.
It's poetic in terms of that tattoo, the meaning of it to him, and how it plays into this situation as a whole. It's amazing. It brings chills to me.
Once I realized that, yeah, I do have that, and this moment is exactly why I got it. Always come home.
Patrol Perspectives is produced by the staff of the Washington State Patrol Government and Media Relations Division. We depend on you for future programming. If you have ideas for future podcasts, let us know by emailing gmrinfo@wsp.wa.gov. For the Washington State Patrol, under the leadership of Chief John R. Batiste and Government and Media Relations, I'm Sergeant Chelsea Hodgson, and this has been Patrol Perspectives. Thank you for listening, stay safe, and we'll see you down the road.